What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Thursday, February 13th, 2025, and I have an emergency alert to share with you guys. Right now it is 14:29 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from the Middle East and Eastern Europe. So, U.S. intelligence agencies have concluded that Israel is considering significant military strikes on Iranian nuclear sites in 2025. This assessment was noted in reports from both the final days of the Biden administration and the early days of the Trump administration, indicating a bipartisan intelligence view on Israel's strategic considerations. This was reported by the Wall Street Journal yesterday. U.S. military officials estimate that an Israeli strike on Iran's fortified nuclear sites would require American military assistance and munitions due to the complexity of the mission. And the Washington Post reported this morning, citing U.S. intelligence sources, that Iran's nuclear program sites in Fordow and or Natanz would likely be hit by Israel. So very, very serious news. And in addition to that, we're hearing that the Egyptian defense minister has ordered military brigades in the Sinai Peninsula and Rafah regions to maintain the highest level of readiness for war. Wow. Okay, and I showed you guys a couple of days ago all of the Egyptian tanks that were piling up on the border of Gaza and Israel. So now the Egyptian defense minister has ordered all military brigades in the Sinai and Rafah regions to be on high alert for war. Okay, because Saturday is coming, and if Hamas doesn't release those hostages by noon on Saturday, all hell's going to break loose. Israel's going to go in there and just bombard the crap out of Gaza. So we could potentially see a war between Egypt and Israel. We'll have to wait and see. We also have some very concerning news coming out of Europe. So yesterday, at least one Russian drone violated Romanian airspace. Romania is a NATO country. According to Romania's defense ministry, one of the drones may have crashed on Romanian territory, and a search is being carried out. Okay, now just 2 days ago, a Russian fighter jet, a Sukhoi 24 tactical bomber, which was built in the USSR for dropping nuclear bombs on NATO, flew into Polish airspace for 1 minute and 12 seconds. Okay, now the Russians send drones into Romania. Okay, so they're clearly testing NATO. They're seeing where the weaknesses are and what the responses are like. This is very serious, guys. So let me just read to you some of the details about this drone attack near the border of Romania. On the night of Wednesday, February 12th, towards Thursday, February 13th, Russian drone systems carried out a new attack on civilian and infrastructure targets located on Ukrainian territory near the border with Romania. As a result of the fact that the radar monitoring and surveillance systems of the Ministry of National Defense signaled air targets that evolved on different flight paths in Ukrainian airspace in the proximity of the national airspace, the National Military Command Center notified the General Inspectorate for Emergency Situations around 11 p.m. regarding the establishment of procedures to alert the population in the border area of Tulsia and Galati counties. To supervise and monitor the airspace in the area, 2 F-16 aircraft of the Romanian Air Force and subsequently 2 Eurofighter aircraft of the Spanish Air Force belonging to the Air Police Combat Service took off from the 86th Air Base in Borsia and the 57th Air Base in Mikhail Kugelnetsu, respectively. The radar systems of the Ministry of National Defense identified at around 0:30 an aerial target that briefly crossed the national airspace near the locality of Reni at a depth of approximately 1 kilometer inland, later heading towards Ukrainian airspace. At the same time, a possible impact area was reported on the national territory near the Ukrainian-Romanian border, approximately 10 kilometers east of the administrative boundary of the municipality of Galati, without any material damage being reported. So, one drone crashed on Romanian territory. The other one flew into Romanian airspace, and Romania had to send out emergency alerts to their population close to the Ukrainian border. Okay, and then they had to scramble 2 Romanian fighter jets, 2 Spanish fighter jets, 2 Romanian F-16s, and 2 Spanish Eurofighters. So this is extremely serious, guys, and this is happening literally just a day after Russia sent a nuclear bomber into Polish airspace. Okay, absolutely insane. And what is NATO doing about it? Nothing. Okay, and that's why Putin is not afraid. And Putin's going to continue to do these things and then eventually invade the Baltics because NATO is afraid. They're weak and timid. Okay, in these types of situations, you have to show strength, not weakness. Okay, and this update was sponsored by EMP Shield. Guys, EMP Shield has created a special discount just for you, the listeners of the NYPrepper channel. If you go to empshield.com and use the promo code NYPrepper, you can get 15% off your entire order. And why do you need an EMP Shield? Well, this is a special device to protect your vehicle, your RV, your solar generators, your radios from an electromagnetic pulse, which could be caused by a solar flare or potentially a rogue country like North Korea detonating an electromagnetic pulse weapon over the United States that's mounted onto a satellite. So protect your vehicles, protect your RV, protect your radios, protect your generators with an EMP Shield. Use my promo code NYPrepper to get 15% off. Installation is super simple. This is a veteran-owned business, 100% American-made, and the EMP Shields have been tested by the military, okay? And free shipping is included to the entire continental United States. And the link and the promo code are in the description below this video. And look at what's going on in Poland here. This was posted by the Polish Defense Ministry this morning. They're showing the progress of their Eastern Shield program, where they're building this massive line of fortifications along their border with Belarus and Russia. You can see all these anti-tank obstacles here. Okay, this is just totally insane. Right along their border with Belarus and Russia, you can see all of the concertina wire in between, so infantry forces can't easily walk across. Okay, and this is just the beginning. Poland is planning to build this massive defense line with trenches and bunkers and logistical supplies and all kinds of stuff. So this is very, very serious, guys. Absolutely insane. And right now, we have 4 nuclear bombers airborne over the continental United States. We have 4 B-52s airborne. We have 1 flying over Oregon that took off from Minot Air Force Base. And then we have 3 in Texas and Louisiana that all took off from Shreveport, which is where Barksdale Air Force Base is located. That's the home of the air leg of our nuclear triad. So we got 2 over Central Texas, 1 over Louisiana, and 1 over Oregon. This is very unusual, guys. And I want to remind you that yesterday there were 45 emergency action messages, guys, okay, which is a lot. Okay, those are nuclear attack options that are sent out to our nuclear forces. It's basically targeting information and various instructions. Okay, they're constantly sending those out to update targets and different information. And there were over 40 of those yesterday, which is a lot, okay? And then we also continue to see this massive reconnaissance and aerial refueling activity off the coast of Mexico in Baja California. We had an RC-135 rivet joint last night patrolling this area, which is a recon plane. And then we also have a P-8 Poseidon that was airborne near Tijuana last night. And I want to remind you that earlier this week and last week, we had several strategic level recon planes fly down to this area. We had a combat sentinel fly down to the Tex-Mex border. Okay, those are special recon planes that send information directly to the president and the Joint Chiefs. And we had two RC-135 rivet joint recon planes take off from STRATCOM headquarters, Strategic Command headquarters in Offutt Air Base, and fly down to Baja California area. Okay, and then multiple P-8 Poseidons patrolling this area as well. So something is brewing in this area. Potentially the Trump administration is considering military strikes on this area, on the cartels, and they're collecting information. Here you can see 3 recon planes late last night off the coast of Mexico. Here you can see an E-3 Sentry, which is an AWACS plane, an RC-135 rivet joint, and then here you can also see this P-8 Poseidon Sub Hunter flying over San Diego close to Tijuana. And last night we saw more reconnaissance in Bulgaria right next to Serbia. This is very concerning. So basically over the last 72 hours, NATO has maintained constant reconnaissance on Serbia. So potentially Serbia is getting ready to invade Kosovo. This is very unusual, guys. I haven't seen this ever before. Okay, and I've been monitoring flights for several years. And then this recon drone here was also patrolling the coast of the Black Sea, which is interesting. But lots of reconnaissance here next to Serbia, and NATO's reaction to a Russian attack would be devastating, according to NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, who said this during a press conference yesterday ahead of the defense ministers' meeting in Brussels. If Russian President Vladimir Putin attacks NATO, the reaction will be devastating. He will lose. Wow, strong words there from Mark Rutte, the leader of NATO, the Secretary General. And the Russian Foreign Ministry said that Moscow expresses concern over the increasing militarization of Greenland and its exploitation to threaten the security of our country. We will not allow the introduction of a confrontational approach in the Arctic region. So, they're responding to what Trump wanted to do with Greenland, which is buy it and militarize it. And now NATO is putting forces there, so Russia is not happy about that. And Trump said yesterday that Saudi Arabia is a good place to host talks with Putin. Trump said he plans to talk to Putin frequently by phone, and the first meeting in Saudi Arabia could be followed by another. Trump believes that a ceasefire in Ukraine is possible in the not-too-distant future, and that new elections should be held in Ukraine at some point. Trump said he had instructed a team including Secretary of State Marco Rubio, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, and National Security Advisor Michael Waltz to lead the peace negotiations with Russia. Interestingly, not included in this team is Lieutenant General Keith Kellogg, Trump's special envoy for Ukraine and Russia, who is considered one of the main hardliners against Russia and Putin within the Trump administration. So if you're not aware, yesterday Trump had a phone call with Putin and Zelensky, and now they're going to possibly be meeting in Saudi Arabia. And according to the Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov, the two leaders spoke for 90 minutes, and Putin invited Trump to Moscow. The Russian president invited the U.S. president to visit Moscow and expressed his readiness to receive American officials in Russia in those areas of mutual interest, including, of course, the topic of the Ukrainian settlement, Peskov said. Putin and Trump also agreed to continue personal contacts, including arranging a face-to-face meeting. And Zelensky commented on his conversation with Trump, saying, "Just spoke with Donald Trump, long conversation about the possibilities of achieving peace, about our willingness to work together, about our technological capabilities, including drones and other modern manufacturing," Zelensky said following the call. Ukraine wants peace more than anything else. We are defining our joint steps with America to stop Russian aggression and guarantee a reliable, lasting peace, he added. So very interesting that Zelensky mentioned drones and technological capabilities. So I wonder if Ukraine is going to make some kind of deal, not just for the minerals in exchange for weapons, but also maybe some of the drone technology that Ukraine has. Maybe Trump is interested in the drone capabilities of Ukraine. Okay, Ukraine has demonstrated that they have some impressive drones, and they've actually tested them in combat, and they've sent these drones 2,000 miles to take out targets in Russia. So I'm sure the U.S. defense industrial complex wants to learn more about that. And Ukraine's defense minister Rustem Umerov stressed that Ukraine has not changed its stance on membership with NATO. Umerov was responding to an earlier statement by U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, who claimed that NATO membership for Ukraine is unrealistic. And Russia has reactivated a special economic commission initially created during COVID to monitor struggling industries and implement relief measures, the Moscow Times reported on February 11th, citing Russian Deputy Prime Minister Alexander Novak. So very interesting, Russia reactivating a special economic commission. That means that they're having some economic difficulties. Okay, they used this economic commission during COVID. And the French Foreign Minister Barrett said it is up to Ukrainians to decide the parameters of the peace accord, and said there will be no just peace for Ukraine without Europeans being associated to the negotiations. And the German Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock says negotiations on Ukraine must include Kiev and Europe. And Switzerland confirmed the first death of one of their military volunteers in the war in Ukraine. Very ominous, guys. Okay, Switzerland is a neutral country. They've always been a neutral country, but now they're confirming the first death of one of their volunteers in Ukraine. So that is very ominous, guys, and that is a sign that we are on an irreversible path to World War III. And Trump further announced that U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance and Secretary of State Marco Rubio will meet with Zelensky in Munich on February the 14th to begin official negotiations. So that's tomorrow. And U.S. President Donald Trump's special envoy for Ukraine and Russia, Keith Kellogg, will visit Ukraine as part of a European tour. The U.S. State Department announced on February 12th. Kellogg will travel to Germany, Belgium, and Ukraine from February the 13th through the 22nd to advance President Trump's goal of securing peace through strength in Ukraine and upholding the national security interests of the United States, the statement said. While in Ukraine, he is expected to meet with officials and civilians affected by nearly 3 years of war. Kellogg will also attend the Munich Security Conference. So want to remind you guys that next week is the 3-year anniversary of this war, okay? And it's good that Keith Kellogg isn't going to be there on the 3-year anniversary, because I have a feeling Russia's going to do something crazy on the 3-year anniversary, even though they're in the midst of peace negotiations, which would be the ultimate disrespect to Trump, okay, to start launching massive strikes on Ukraine in the process of peace negotiations. I would really hope that Trump would not continue peace negotiations while Putin is bombing Ukrainian civilians. And Chinese officials have proposed arranging a summit between U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin, but the idea has been met with skepticism, the Wall Street Journal reported on February 13th, citing sources familiar with the matter. According to the Wall Street Journal, Beijing made the offer through intermediaries, suggesting a U.S.-Russia summit without Ukrainian President Zelensky's participation. Wow. So China wants to host this summit with Trump and Putin without Zelensky. Absolutely insane. And I want to just read to you this post that Trump put on social media yesterday. This is on Truth Social, talking about everything that happened yesterday with the phone call with Putin and Zelensky. He wrote, "I just had a lengthy and highly productive phone call with President Vladimir Putin of Russia. We discussed Ukraine, the Middle East, energy, artificial intelligence, the power of the dollar, and various other subjects. We both reflected on the great history of our nations and the fact that we fought so successfully together in World War II, remembering that Russia lost tens of millions of people, and we likewise lost so many. We also talked about the strengths of our respective nations and the great benefit that we will someday have in working together. But first, as we both agreed, we want to stop the millions of deaths taking place in the war with Russia-Ukraine. President Putin even used my very strong campaign motto of common sense. We both believe very strongly in it. We agreed to work together very closely, including visiting each other's nations. We have also agreed to have our respective teams start negotiations immediately, and we will begin by calling President Zelensky of Ukraine to inform him of the conversation, something which I will be doing right now. I have asked Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Director of the CIA John Ratcliffe, National Security Advisor Michael Waltz, and Ambassador and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff to lead the negotiations, which I feel strongly will be successful. Millions of people have died in a war that would not have happened if I were president, but it did happen, so it must end. No more lives should be lost. I want to thank President Putin for his time and effort with respect to this call and for the release yesterday of Mark Fogel, a wonderful man that I personally greeted last night at the White House. I believe this effort will lead to a successful conclusion, hopefully soon." Wow. So I'm actually kind of concerned at Trump's tone here. He's kind of bowing down to Putin. I think he drank Putin's Kool-Aid. First of all, yes, Russia lost millions of people, but actually we supplied Russia with our weapons when Russia was fighting the Nazis in Stalingrad. It was actually our weapons during the Lend-Lease program that Russia was using to kick out the Nazis from their land. So actually, if it wasn't for our help, Russia would not have had the weaponry needed to defeat the Nazis, okay? So we had a huge part in that, and that's usually not mentioned by Putin and people who sympathize with him, okay? It was our weaponry under the Lend-Lease program. We gave much more weapons than we've given to Ukraine to Russia so they could defeat the Nazis. And that's never mentioned by Putin. And Denmark's Defense Intelligence Service assessed that Russia may have the capabilities to launch a full-scale war against NATO in the next 5 years. Wow. The DDIS published a declassified intelligence assessment on February 11th detailing the growing Russian threat to Denmark and NATO. The intelligence assessment notes that Russia is rebuilding its military to fight NATO on an equal footing, aided by financial and material support from the People's Republic of China, North Korea, and Iran. The intelligence assessment states that Russia's willingness to risk war with NATO may increase if European countries do not simultaneously build up their military capabilities in response to Russian capacity building efforts. Okay, and this is one of the reasons why the Trump administration has been complaining about NATO, okay, because literally there's this huge war going on right on their doorstep in Ukraine with millions of people being killed. And, you know, these countries in Western Europe are spending the same amount of money on their militaries as they did like 20 years ago, okay? They have to double, triple, quadruple their defense spending now, yesterday, okay? Because Russia's not stupid. They're testing NATO. They're sending fighter jets into Poland. They're sending drones and missiles into Romania and Poland as well. So they're testing, okay? And China says Gaza belongs to the Palestinians and that it is opposed to any forced displacement. North Korea also rejected U.S. President Trump's proposal to take over the Gaza Strip and resettle Palestinians. And the IRGC leader in Iran said negotiations with the U.S. are off limits. He said, as the Supreme Leader has stated, we have no limits on global engagement, but negotiations with the U.S. remain off limits. He added, should they threaten us, we will threaten them. If they act on their threats, we are fully prepared to retaliate, putting their national interests at risk across the world. Wow. Okay, so strong words there from the IRGC. And French President Emmanuel Macron rejected U.S. President Donald Trump's Gaza proposal during an exclusive interview with CNN last week, calling for the respect of Palestinians and their Arab neighbors. And Israel is establishing 5 military outposts inside of Lebanon to house hundreds of IDF troops. And the Canadian Defense Minister called 51st State taunts offensive. He said, Canadians will always stand up for our nation, our country, Bill Blair said Wednesday in Brussels. We're prepared to defend ourselves as required. And Elon Musk is set to meet with the Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi during a U.S. trip, sources say. But that's the latest breaking news that I have. I might be back later on tonight with more breaking news. Check out my 24/7 live stream. I always go in and out of the stream and update the stream with information. Also, check out my app so you can get notified when I post these updates. The link to my app is in the description below this video. It's 100% free. It's only available on Android right now, but it's going to be coming out for Apple very, very soon. But you can basically get free notifications from me when things are going down, when there's emergencies, when stuff is happening. You don't have to rely on YouTube or other social media to notify you. I can directly send you notifications through the app. Okay, and big thanks to the developers, Tim and Josh. Thank you guys so much. But until the next time, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps. Prepare, practice, and persevere.